The day I understood Harry James had never let go of his first love, I started teaching our 7-year-old son to call him Mr. James. When our son was hospitalized with acute gastroenteritis, one phone call from Vivian Whitney was enough. Harry walked out on the boy mid-4 without a backward glance. I held my son's cold little hand and taught him softly, "Say goodbye to Mr. James." He promised to spend our son's birthday with us. Then Vivian sobbed down the line that her boy had no father around. Harry pulled on his coat to leave. Without lifting my head, I handed Lowell the tablet. Cancel Mr. James's flight. Later, in a rare fit of guilt, Harry pushed back a major board meeting to take us for a family portrait session. The car had barely stopped at the studio entrance when Vivian's call came, timed to the minute. Harry, the other kids are teasing Howie because he has no dad. Harry's face flickered with reluctance, and he turned to apologize to our son. But Lowell waved him off first, polite and distant. "It's all right, Mr. James. You can go. The family portrait won't have you in it anyway, and that's fine." As his words hung in the air, Harry and I both froze in the hallway. The truth was, this was the 27th day since I'd realized Harry's heart had drifted away from this family. Every time he abandoned us for Vivian, I would sit up late at night, hold my son's hand, and teach him to say Mr. James. That was the only way I knew to remind myself, and him. Don't keep even a sliver of hope for a man who isn't here. But Lowell was only 7. Harry had once been the tallest man in his world, the superhero in his small, trusting eyes. The first few times I made him stop calling Harry Dad, his eyes would redden and his fists would clutch his shirt, and he couldn't bring himself to say those 2 syllables. Today he said them on his own, clear and courteous. Meeting Harry's stunned stare, Lowell took my hand and said, perfectly calm, "Go ahead and tend to your business, Mr. James. Mom, it's time for our appointment. Let's not keep them waiting." The little boy led me away, walking toward the magazine studio without once looking back. This shoot was meant to run as a national cover feature, something Harry had arranged himself to make up for missing Lowell's birthday. For 2 weeks, Lowell had been circling the date on his calendar, counting down the days every night before he fell asleep. I followed his footsteps numbly, my chest aching so hard I could barely breathe. I discovered how far Harry had crossed the line 2 weeks earlier when a private member's riding club entry pass slipped out of his suit pocket. Lowell's one wish for his 7th birthday had been for his father to watch him ride a horse, just once. Harry had refused without hesitation, cold-faced, citing a multi-billion-dollar cross-border merger that couldn't move forward without him. 3 days later, he took Vivian and her son to that same members-only club, the one the public couldn't even enter. I saw it on Vivian's feed. In the photo, the ever-untouchable head of James Group had stooped to carry Vivian's boy on his shoulders. Vivian was hooked on his arm, beaming. The caption read, "Our favorite riding club," and of course we went with the best dad of all. Vivian was his first love. Her brother had died years ago, saving Harry's life. So that night, we had the worst fight of our marriage. I told him I wanted a divorce, and I meant it. Harry was a man used to controlling everything. He knotted his brow and, with that arrogance that left no room for argument, accused me of blowing it out of proportion. He called it nothing more than a debt and a duty he could never walk away from. I looked at my son's small shape trembling behind the couch, terrified, and dug my nails into my palms. I knew that endless compromise would only ever buy me endless disappointment. I would not let my child spend his whole life waiting on a hope that would never come. So I changed tactics, set a trap, and got him to sign a divorce agreement with a 30-day cooling-off period. Day 27 finally came, and our son called him Mr. James of his own accord. As we walked out through the lobby of the riding club, Harry surfaced from his shock at last. He hurried after us, a few quick strides, reaching to catch our son and demand an explanation. But before he could touch the boy, Vivian's call came again, timed to the second. Through the receiver, the woman's voice cracked, weak and helpless. Harry, Howie got into a fight at school, and he's hurt. He won't stop crying for his dad. I don't know what to do anymore. Harry's steps stopped dead. He watched our retreating backs, the distance my son and I had already put between us and him, and something struggled behind his eyes. In the end, he only gripped the phone tighter and said low, "I understand. I'm on my way." He fired off a quick text, "I'll explain tonight," then turned and crossed the Maybach idling at the curb in long, rapid strides. As the roar of the engine faded into the distance, our son suddenly stopped walking in the dim underground garage, turned, and threw himself into my arms. Tears came down in heavy drops, soaking through my couture gown in an instant. He sobbed, and in a voice that was very small yet very certain, he said to me, "Mom, let's not have a dad anymore, okay?" We never took the family portrait. I brought our son straight back to the Riverside mansion. Upstairs, I dragged out the large suitcase and started packing his clothes. I had just opened my phone to book the flights back to LA when Vivian's private message popped up, timed to the second. It was a photo, freshly taken, and the backdrop was the very appointment-only studio we'd walked out of a few minutes earlier. In the frame, Vivian wore an elegant white gown. Harry stood in a crisp herringbone suit, Howie laughing in his arms. The whole picture of a wealthy family, devoted and complete. Beneath it ran a single line of text, sharp enough to sting. "It's just a family portrait, isn't it? Whenever I want, the three of us are a family." The old me would never have let a provocation like that slide. I'd have hunted Harry down and made him explain himself. But just then, watching our son piece together his custom supercar model on the carpet, lost to everything else, I felt nothing but a sudden, flat tiredness. I calmly closed the chat and booked the flights for 3 days out. I'd just finished paying when the sound of someone changing shoes came from the entryway. Harry pushed the door open, and in his hand, of all things, was a beautifully boxed layered fruit cream cake. Our son and I both froze, caught off guard. Harry had always loathed the smell of that dessert, to the point of open disgust. That was exactly why, no matter how badly our son craved it, on his birthdays we'd only ever dared to indulge Harry's taste and order the bitter dark chocolate cake. And today this all-conquering CEO had stooped to buy the very food he despised most? Our son and I traded a glance. It was just absurd. Harry came closer, slow, and when he made out the open suitcases spread across the middle of the living room, his gaze darkened. Howie fell apart earlier. I stayed to calm him down a while. I passed a dessert shop on the way and remembered you two like this, so I bought it. He loosened his tie, his voice low. "What's all the packing for? Going somewhere to unwind." I lowered my lashes and nodded along with him. 3 days left in the cooling off period. I couldn't be bothered to start another fight. Seeing me nod, the tension visibly left Harry's shoulders. He crouched down, bringing himself level with our son, and into his voice came something rare, a soft, coaxing warmth. "I've already had the photo studio reschedule the session, day after tomorrow afternoon, and I swear, this time I won't bail on you." My son's hands paused over the model. He glanced at Harry, then tipped his head up, hesitant. And still, against everything, a flicker of hope rose in his eyes and turned toward me. Meeting those clear, wide eyes, something in me went soft. "All right. Call it granting the boy one last wish." The words were barely out before his whole face lit up. He scooped up his beloved model and went padding off in his slippers, racing into his room. The living room felt quiet again. I bent back over the clothes, sorting them, while Harry came to my side and started to speak, hesitating. About him calling me Mr. James today? My fingers stilled. I lifted my eyes to him. He set the cake aside, took my hand, and pressed it against his chest, against the smooth front of his suit. Under my palm, his heartbeat ran a little fast. "Deborah, I know you've been angry with me lately. Angry that I've looked after Vivian and her boy too much and left you, and our son out in the cold. His eyes held a seriousness, a helplessness I'd never seen in them. But what I feel for her is only what I owe her brother. She's raising a child alone, and in our circles that's no easy thing. I can't just abandon them. Give me a little more time. Once I've got them properly settled, I'll never let you or our son suffer another moment of it. I stared at that handsome, sharply cut face, and for a second I drifted. I could barely remember the last time he'd looked at me like this, with so much tenderness, so much focus. Was it at that wedding of the century the whole city talked about, when he took my hand and spoke his vows? Or in the delivery room, when our son was born and he kissed my forehead with shaking lips? Whatever those scalding promises had been, they'd long since gone cold in all that waiting. Looking at the man in front of me, I suddenly wanted to lay it all bare. Harry, the truth is... Oh, all right. He cut in, an edge of urgency crossing his handsome face. That globally limited edition Bugatti scale model you bought our son, the original factory one, where is it? In the display case? Vivian says how he's been begging to play with it lately. Let me take it over to calm him down. I'll bring it back in a few days. He didn't wait for an answer. He just turned and walked straight to the study. Less than a minute later, he came out with a model my son treasured above everything, grabbing his car keys in the same motion and pulling the front door open in a rush. Slam. The heavy security door closed completely in front of me. I stood there staring at the empty entryway for a long time before I finally said the rest of it, softly, to no one. The truth is, our son, and I don't want you anymore. 3 days left before we were gone for good. At midnight, I stopped working, rubbed my aching temples, and lay down on the empty bed. My phone screen lit up all at once. A message from Harry. Howie loves the sports car model. I stayed up all night putting it together with him. Vivian wanted me to pass along her thanks. Ha! The middle of the night, and my husband was up keeping another woman's child company, then relaying her thanks to me on top of it. I gave a small, self-mocking tug at the corner of my mouth. Even anger felt like a waste now. Some endings, after all, are settled long before they arrive. Expressionless, I typed out my reply. No need to thank me. It wasn't a gift from me. That Bugatti model was our son's 7th birthday present. He waited 3 whole months for you. He wanted you to build it with him. Once it was sent, I powered off the phone, closed my eyes, and let myself sink into sleep. The next morning, in a rare break from routine, Harry skipped the executive meeting he usually chaired at James' group and came home to the Riverside mansion early. He pushed open the door to the dressing room, glanced down, and froze where he stood. 4 silver suitcases sat lined up neatly beside the cabinet. It's just a short trip. Why pack all this? He hadn't even taken off his suit jacket, and there was a thread of panic in his voice he couldn't quite hide. I was bent over our son, straightening his tailored shirt, and didn't look up. It's a long way. We'll be staying a while. His eyes went straight to Lowell, who nodded, sweet and obedient. The tight line of his jaw eased a little. Then he reached into his briefcase and drew out 3 gold-embossed VIP passes to the riding club, spreading them open slowly in front of the 2 of us. Deborah, you've been angry with me for not taking him to the club, haven't you? I pushed back my morning meeting. I pulled these from the private list especially for today. The 3 of us can go right now. There was a rare coaxing note in his voice, and his dark eyes were full of hope. For a moment, I felt strangely off balance. It had been nearly a month since he stood us up, and only today did it occur to him to make it right. But then I remembered the text conversation I'd cut short last night, and it all came clear in an instant. This was nothing more than a late apology, dragged out of him by guilt. So I said nothing and kept straightening Lowell's collar. But Lowell suddenly lit up, gazing up at me with shining eyes. Mommy, I want to ride a pony. Looking at that light in his eyes, I was about to nod when Harry added, haltingly, only if we go to the club today, you have to agree to one thing for me. Vivian heard we'd booked the family portrait tomorrow. She's worried that if Howie finds out, he'll feel left out and act up. So the photos, could we push them back a little first? He wouldn't meet our eyes as he said it, his whole face short on conviction, soft with the guilt of a man who knew he had no ground to stand on. The smile froze on Lowell's face. The light in his eyes went out, inch by inch. Oh, okay. He lowered his small head and his hands, folded in front of him, clenched tight around the hem of his shirt. Harry, on the other hand, let out a breath like a man set free and went right on talking himself into it. It's her only worry, and I figure the portrait can be done anytime. We'll have plenty of chances later, right, buddy? He had no idea that tomorrow our son and I would be gone from this city for good. But neither of us let on. I looked at him, my lips twisting into a cold, faint smile. Fine, we'll do it your way. Harry exhaled, and at last a relieved smile spread across his handsome face. Then I'll let Vivian know. 1 o'clock this afternoon. We'll meet at the main gate of the private club. He buttoned his jacket as he headed out, and at the door he stopped short and looked back at us. Deborah, Buddy, thank you both for understanding. Neither of us answered. We only watched him go. Quietly. The instant the security door clicked shut, Lowell snapped the lid closed on the supercar model's box. He slid down off the sofa and pulled out the little suitcase he'd packed long ago. Mommy, I don't want to go to the club anymore. Can we just leave now? I crouched down and ruffled his hair. Yes, I've already rebooked the tickets. The 2 o'clock flight this afternoon. That morning, in the Riverside mansion where we'd lived together for years, I made one last simple breakfast. The layered fruit cream cake Harry had brought home the night before had already turned. My son dropped it in the trash without a word, his face giving nothing away. At 9 sharp, the Fox family attorney placed the signed divorce agreement in my hands. The property split was clean, and in the line for our son's custody, the wording left no room for doubt. While I read, I refreshed my feed out of habit. Vivian had posted 5 minutes earlier. Rushed the family portrait through, and the composition is perfect. Howie says it's the best gift he's gotten all year, and that it has to hang above his bed. The attached photo was the one they'd taken at the studio yesterday, their family shot. My son sat at the table, folding a paper airplane out of his special stationery. He gave my screen a glance. Nothing moved in those bright dark eyes. He only said quietly, Mom, put the agreement away. It's time to go. At noon we didn't trouble the James bodyguards or a driver. We called an Uber to the airport ourselves. The whole way there, my son held his tablet and scrolled through the album in silence. It held the few tender moments he and Harry had ever shared. The profile of Harry the day he was born, cradling him so carefully in the hospital. The 2 of them at the company gala when he was 5, Harry taking his little hand in front of all those watching eyes. A video from before Vivian and her son turned up, of Harry on the lawn guiding his hands through a golf swing. He watched them over and over. He didn't cry. He didn't fuss. But a suffocating disappointment, a quiet grief, spread through the car all the same. I reached over and folded his cold little hand in mine. At 1 o'clock the boarding call came over the airport speakers. Harry's call landed at exactly that moment. Deborah, tell our son I'm sorry. Howie just fell from the stands at the riding club and broke his shin. Vivian nearly fainted. I have to get him to the hospital right now. There's no way I'll make it by 2. If it's windy at the club, take our son home to rest first. Tell him Dad will make it up to him another day. His voice was clipped and anxious, and he hung up before I could get out a single word. Let's go. I put my phone away and took my son's hand. He nodded, good as ever. Then he looked down, opened the album, and with one small motion of his fingertip, selected all and deleted them. At 2 o'clock the great roar rose, and the plane drove up into the clouds. I fitted his noise-canceling headphones over his ears, shutting out everything outside. Watching the city's buildings shrink to black specks past the window, I let out the long breath I'd held in my chest for so long. Goodbye, Harry,